Every morning, just after sunrise, the porch sits quietly beneath a pale wash of gold. The wooden boards creak softly as the house warms, and the wind carries the faint scent of old flowers from a nearby garden. Nothing moves until a dog appears at the end of the path. He arrives the same way each day. Calm. Unhurried. His paws slow as he steps onto the porch, tail low but steady, eyes fixed on the door as if it might open at any moment. He sits near the corner where the light falls just right, nose lifting slightly, listening not for sound, but for something deeper. From across the street, a neighbor watches. At first, it seems like coincidence. Dogs wander. Dogs wait. But this one doesn't scratch, doesn't bark, doesn't whine. He simply sits. Patient. Present. As though this empty porch still belongs to someone. The neighbor feels it before understanding it, a quiet pull in the chest. Curiosity turns into concern, and concern into something softer. Why here? Why every day? The house hasn't been lived in for months. No lights. No footsteps. No voices. Still, the dog returns. Some mornings he lies down, chin resting on his paws, eyes half closed but alert. Other days he stands and presses his nose gently against the doorframe, as if greeting an unseen friend. Time seems to slow around him, wrapping the porch in a hush that feels almost sacred. Those who notice begin to feel it too, that this isn't habit or confusion. This is intention. A devotion carried quietly, without demand or explanation. And as the days pass, it becomes clear, the dog isn't waiting for someone to come back. He's remembering. What the dog sensed would change everything. Morning arrives softly in this neighborhood. Not with alarms. Not with urgency. But with light. Golden, patient light that slips between tree branches and settles on quiet rooftops, on parked cars still beaded with dew, on a single wooden porch at the end of the street. The house has been empty for months. No curtains move behind the windows. No footsteps cross the floor inside. The mailbox stays full a little longer than it should. And yet, every morning, the porch is not alone. A dog appears at the edge of the sidewalk. Medium-sized. Short brown coat with faint white along the chest. Ears that lift slightly when he pauses, as if listening to something only he can hear. He doesn't rush. His paws move slowly, deliberately, touching the concrete with care. Not wandering. Not confused. Purposeful. He steps onto the porch and sits near the door. Always the same spot. Not centered. Not right against the door. Just to the side, where the early light warms the boards first. He lowers himself carefully. Tail tucked loosely beside him. Eyes forward. Waiting. Across the street, a woman stands at her kitchen window. Her name is Ellen. She's lived here nearly 12 years. Long enough to recognize routines. Long enough to know when something doesn't quite fit. At first, she thinks nothing of it. Dogs pass through sometimes. Strays wander. Pets escape yards. But this dog doesn't wander. He sits. Still. As if the porch belongs to him. Ellen watches while the coffee maker hums behind her. Steam curls up, fogging the window for a moment. When it clears, the dog is still there. He doesn't scratch at the door. Doesn't bark. He simply waits. Ellen feels a small tightening in her chest. Not worry. Not yet. Just awareness. She takes her mug and steps outside. The air is cool. Quiet. The kind of quiet that holds its breath. Hey there, she says softly. Her voice carries easily down the street. The dog doesn't turn. Not right away. His ears twitch. A small acknowledgement. but his eyes remain fixed on the door. Ellen doesn't move closer. She knows better than to rush a moment like this. After a few seconds, the dog finally looks at her. Calm eyes. Brown. Clear. No fear in them. No urgency. Just patience. Is that your house? Ellen asks gently. The dog blinks once, then looks back at the door. Ellen exhales slowly. She remembers the house before it went quiet. An older man lived there. Kind. Kept his lawn neat. Always waved. And always, there was a dog. This dog. Ellen hadn't realized it until now. She takes a step closer. The dog shifts slightly, not away, not toward, just enough to acknowledge her presence. Still, he does not leave the porch. I haven't seen anyone there in a while, Ellen says. Her voice feels too loud. The dog lowers his head and rests his chin on his paws. A simple movement. Heavy with meaning. Ellen feels it then. That gentle pull behind the ribs. The one that doesn't hurt, but asks to be noticed. She crouches a few feet away. Doesn't reach out. Doesn't interrupt. They share the quiet. Minutes pass. A car drives by at the far end of the street. Birds stir in the trees. The world continues. The dog does not move. Eventually, Ellen stands. I'll bring you some water, she says. This time, the dog looks at her fully. Not hopeful. Not expectant. Just accepting. When she returns with a small bowl, she places it at the edge of the porch. The dog waits. Only after she steps back does he lean forward, take a few careful sips, and then return to his place. Facing the door. As if nothing had interrupted him at all. By late morning, the sun climbs higher. The porch loses its golden warmth. The dog stands. Stretches slowly. Ellen holds her breath, thinking he might leave. But instead, he steps down, turns once, and looks back at the house. A long look. Then he walks away. Not running. Not hesitating. Just departing. The next morning. He returns. Same time. Same porch. Same quiet devotion. And that's when Ellen understands something important. This isn't coincidence. This isn't habit. This is memory, played out in silence, every single day. And whatever the dog is holding on to, whatever he believes still lives beyond that door, has not let go of him yet. The third morning confirms it. Not because the dog returns, Ellen had already begun to expect that, but because of how he returns. Same time. Just after the sun clears the rooftops, when shadows still stretch long across the pavement, when the street feels like it belongs only to those who wake early. Ellen watches from behind the curtain this time. She doesn't want to disturb the moment. The dog appears at the corner exactly as before. Pauses. Looks down the street once, a brief, scanning glance, then walks straight to the porch. No hesitation. No sniffing around the yard. No circling. He steps up, turns slightly to the left, and sits in the same place he chose the day before. That's when Ellen feels it. That quiet certainty. This isn't random. This is intentional. She wraps both hands around her mug, letting the warmth settle into her palms. The dog's posture is different today. More upright. Alert, but not tense. His ears angle forward, catching the faintest sounds, a passing bird, the hum of a distant engine, the soft creak of the house as it warms. But his eyes remain fixed on the door. As if he's waiting for a signal. Not a sound. Not movement. Something subtler. Ellen steps outside again, slower this time. She knows now that this is something fragile. "Good morning," she says quietly. The dog acknowledges her immediately. A glance. A soft blink. Then, back to the door. Ellen smiles without meaning to. "You really like that spot," she murmurs. The dog's tail gives one small sweep against the wood. Not excitement. Recognition. She sits on the bottom step of her own porch across the street. From here, she can see everything. The weathered paint. The faint mark on the door frame where something once leaned, maybe a walking cane, maybe a leash hook. She notices details she's passed 100 times without seeing. The dog stands suddenly. Ellen's breath catches. He moves closer to the door. Presses his nose gently against the lower panel. Not pushing. Not scratching. Just touching. Then he steps back and sits again. Ellen swallows. There's a weight to the moment. Not sadness. Expectation. Like the air just before a familiar voice enters a room. "Are you waiting for someone?" she asks. Her words drift across the street. The dog doesn't respond in any way she can measure. But something about him softens. His shoulders relax. His head lowers slightly. As if the question wasn't new. As if it's been asked many times, in many ways, by many people who didn't quite know how to ask it right. Late morning arrives again. The sun shifts. The porch cools. And once more, the dog stands. But today, he does something different. Before leaving, he turns and lowers himself at the top step. Lies down. Facing the street. Facing Ellen. Their eyes meet. It isn't a plea. It isn't a request. It's acknowledgement. A quiet sharing of space. Then he rises, walks down the steps, and leaves. Ellen remains seated long after he's gone. She realizes something important. This dog isn't lost. He isn't confused. He knows exactly where he is. And exactly why he's here. Whatever he's returning to, whatever memory draws him back, is strong enough to guide him with perfect consistency. That afternoon, Ellen does something she hasn't planned. She walks across the street. Stands on the porch. Feels the boards beneath her feet. Feels the stillness. And for the first time, she understands. This porch isn't empty. It's holding something. Waiting. Just like the dog. And tomorrow. She knows. He'll be back. By the end of the week, the dog's presence is no longer something Ellen notices by chance. It becomes something she waits for. She wakes a few minutes earlier now. Not because she needs to, but because she wants to be there when he arrives. The street is quiet in that soft, early way. No children yet. No delivery trucks. Just light, birdsong, and stillness. And then, right on time, he appears. Same calm walk. Same measured steps. Same pause at the edge of the sidewalk before crossing. Ellen watches from her porch this morning, wrapped in a light sweater. She doesn't call out. She simply lets the moment unfold. The dog reaches the porch, steps up, and sits. But today, Ellen notices something new. He doesn't just face the door. He angles his body slightly. As if leaving room. As if expecting someone else to sit beside him. The thought catches her off guard. She presses her lips together, breathing slowly. "You're very polite," she says softly, mostly to herself. The dog's ears twitch. She smiles. After a few minutes, Ellen stands and crosses the street. Slowly. Deliberately. She stops at the bottom step. "Would you mind if I sat here for a bit?" she asks. Her voice is calm, gentle. The dog looks at her. Really looks this time. Then he shifts just enough to make space. Ellen lowers herself onto the porch step. The wood is cool beneath her hands. They sit in silence. No pressure. No expectations. Just presence. She notices the small things. The faint scar on his left ear. The way his breathing slows once she's still. The way his eyes soften when he glances at the door. "This place matters to you," she says quietly. The dog's tail gives a slow, single sweep. Ellen feels something loosen inside her chest. She starts bringing water every morning. Sometimes a small piece of toast. The dog accepts the water. Never touches the food. Not here. Not on the porch. As the days pass, Ellen begins to talk. Not a lot. Just enough. She tells him about the weather. About the neighbor's new garden. About how quiet the house has been. The dog listens. Not with his head turned. Not with his ears pricked. But with his whole body. One morning, Ellen mentions the man who used to live there. His name was Walter, she says. "I think." The dog lifts his head. Just slightly. Ellen's breath catches. She doesn't repeat the name. Doesn't test it. She lets it rest between them. From then on, Ellen watches more closely. The dog's routine never changes. But his awareness does. He notices Ellen now. Checks in with her. A glance when she sits. A brief look when she stands. As if acknowledging a shared responsibility. One morning, Ellen arrives a little late. The dog is already there. But he's standing. Looking down the street. When he sees her, he relaxes. And sits. Ellen stops short. "Oh," she whispers. "I'm sorry." She doesn't know why she says it. The dog walks toward her. Just a few steps. Then returns to his place. It's subtle. But Ellen understands. She's not an interruption. She's part of the waiting now. And somewhere in that quiet partnership, curiosity deepens into care. Because this dog isn't just remembering. He's holding space. And Ellen, without realizing it, has begun to do the same. The mornings begin to feel different. Not louder. Not busier. Just fuller. Ellen notices it one day as she steps outside with the water bowl. The air feels warmer somehow, even though the temperature hasn't changed. The dog is already there. Seated in his usual place. Body angled toward the door. Eyes steady. But when he hears her footsteps, he glances back. Just once. Then returns to his waiting. "Good morning," she says, placing the bowl near the edge of the porch. She sits beside him now. Not close enough to touch. But close enough to share the warmth of the rising sun. They don't speak right away. Silence has its own rhythm now. A comfortable one. Ellen notices how the light falls across the dog's back. The brown of his coat warms into copper. The white on his chest catches the glow like fabric left in sunlight. She reaches out. Then stops herself. Not yet. Some moments ask for patience. The dog shifts slightly. Not away. Closer. Just enough that their shoulders nearly align. Ellen exhales. "That's okay," she whispers. "I'm here." The dog's tail moves once. Slow. Deliberate. She begins to understand the weight of this place. This porch isn't just wood and nails. It's memory. It's routine. It's the quiet echo of mornings once shared. Some days, Ellen brings a blanket and sits longer. Other days, she leaves early but always returns before noon. Just in time to watch the dog stand, stretch, and take that final look at the door. One morning, Ellen notices something new. A faint groove in the porch railing. Worn smooth. She runs her fingers over it. Leash height. She swallows. "I think you sat here with him," she says softly. The dog lifts his head. Not toward her. Toward the door. The moment stretches. Then passes. As the week unfolds, neighbors begin to notice. A wave from down the street. A curious glance from a passing jogger. Ellen doesn't explain. She wouldn't know how. Some things don't need words. One morning, the dog doesn't sit right away. He stands at the door longer than usual. Nose lifted. Breathing in. Ellen feels her heart slow. She mirrors his stillness. Whatever he's sensing, she wants to respect it. Finally, he steps back. Sits. And lets out a slow breath. Ellen finds herself placing her hand on the porch between them. Not touching him. Just resting. The dog leans. Barely. So that his side brushes her arm. Contact. Simple. Quiet. Enough. Ellen doesn't move. She doesn't breathe. She lets the moment happen. Later that afternoon, Ellen walks past the house alone. She pauses. Looks at the door. For the first time, she imagines what it must have sounded like. A voice greeting the dog each morning. A hand reaching down. A leash clipped on before their walk. She feels the ache then. Soft. Human. And when she looks back toward her own house, she understands something important. This isn't just the dog's devotion anymore. It's shared. Two beings. One with memory. One with empathy. Keeping something alive simply by showing up. And whatever truth is waiting to be uncovered. It's getting closer. The porch begins to speak. Not in words, but in details. Details Ellen can no longer ignore. She notices them one morning while the dog waits. The light is softer today. Filtered through thin clouds that slow the sunrise. The dog sits, steady as always. Ellen's gaze drifts across the porch and lands on a faint outline near the door. A rectangle. Slightly darker than the surrounding paint. She leans closer. A welcome mat used to sit there. She can almost see it. Frayed edges. Faded lettering. She smiles without meaning to. "I remember that," she says quietly. The dog's ears lift. Ellen notices more as the days go on. A hook by the doorframe, slightly bent. Too low for a coat. Perfect for a leash. The railing's worn spot makes sense now. She imagines a hand resting there, steadying itself, while the dog waited patiently at the top step. One morning, Ellen brings a small cloth and gently wipes the dust from the door. Not cleaning. Honoring. The dog watches every movement. Alert but calm. As if he understands the intention. "You don't mind, do you?" she murmurs. The dog doesn't react. But when she finishes, he steps forward and touches his nose to the clean space. Just once. Ellen's throat tightens. That afternoon, Ellen does something she's avoided. She checks the mailbox. It's heavy. Full. She flips through the envelopes slowly. Utility bills. Flyers. And then a name. Walter Harris. Her breath catches. She doesn't open anything. She simply holds the letters. Feels their weight. When she returns the mail to the box, the dog is standing. Watching. As if waiting for her to notice something important. You knew his name, she whispers. She doesn't know why she says it. But the dog's tail moves. One slow sweep. That evening, Ellen sits on her porch long after the sun is gone. She thinks about memory. How it doesn't fade evenly. How some moments stay sharp, while others blur. The next morning, the dog arrives carrying something. At first, Ellen thinks it's a stick. Then she sees the worn leather. A leash. Old. Cracked. But intact. The dog places it carefully at the edge of the porch. Not in front of the door. Beside Ellen. He sits. Ellen stares. Doesn't touch it. Can't. Her breath comes shallow. Oh, she whispers. The dog doesn't look at her. He looks at the door. And Ellen understands. This is a loss. This is remembrance. This is the dog bringing proof that someone was here, that someone mattered. Ellen finally reaches out. Her fingers brush the leash. It's warm from his mouth. She swallows hard. You walk together, she says. The dog lowers his head. As if agreeing. As if confirming. The porch feels different now. Heavier. But also, complete. The pieces are coming together. And Ellen knows. The truth they're circling is no longer hidden. It's waiting. The leash stays on the porch. Ellen doesn't move it. She doesn't bring it inside. She leaves it exactly where the dog placed it, resting beside the step, as if it belongs there. The dog returns the next morning and notices immediately. He looks at the leash. Then at Ellen. Then he sits. A quiet approval. Something settles between them. A shared knowing. Ellen feels it as she sits down beside him. Not the sharp ache of grief, but the softer weight of understanding. You're not waiting for him to come back, she says gently. The dog's ears flick. He remains still. You're keeping him here. The words surprise her as they leave her mouth. But once spoken, they feel true. The dog leans forward and presses his nose lightly to the door again. Not hopeful. Not desperate. Just present. Ellen closes her eyes. She imagines Walter's mornings. The same sun. The same porch. A routine built from small things: coffee, quiet, a hand reaching down to scratch behind familiar ears. And then one day, the routine breaks. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just ends. Ellen opens her eyes. The dog has turned toward her. He studies her face with calm focus. As if measuring something. She feels suddenly exposed. He loved you, she says. It isn't a guess. The dog exhales slowly through his nose. A breath that sounds almost like relief. Later that day, Ellen visits the local library. She doesn't know exactly what she's looking for. Just confirmation. The librarian helps quietly. Old records. Local notices. It doesn't take long. Walter Harris passed away quietly in a care facility. No family listed nearby. One companion mentioned. Dog. Ellen sits in her car afterward. Hands resting on the steering wheel. The world feels muted. Not sad. Still. She whispers, "You stayed." The next morning, Ellen brings something new. A small framed photo she found in an old community newsletter. Walter standing on this very porch. The dog beside him. Both of them looking relaxed. At home. She sets the photo near the door. Not taped. Not permanent. Just present. The dog approaches slowly. Carefully. He studies the image. Tilts his head. Then sits beside it. Ellen watches tears blur her vision. But she doesn't wipe them away. "They didn't forget you," she says softly. The dog shifts closer to the door. Presses his shoulder against it. And in that moment, Ellen understands the full truth. The dog isn't trapped in the past. He's honoring it. Returning each day not because he doesn't know what happened, but because love doesn't disappear when someone leaves. It lingers. In places. In routines. In quiet devotion. And now, someone else knows. Someone else remembers. The waiting changes after that. It's still quiet. Still gentle. But no longer lonely. Because the truth has been seen. And shared. The porch feels warmer now. Not because the sun is brighter, but because the story has been spoken. Named. Seen. The dog still arrives each morning. Same time. Same calm walk. Same pause before stepping onto the porch. But something in his posture has softened. The waiting is still there, yet it carries less weight. Ellen notices it as she sets the water bowl down. He no longer stares at the door the entire time. Sometimes he looks at the street. At the sky. At her. As if the world has gently widened again. She sits beside him and speaks quietly. Not explaining. Not comforting. Just remembering out loud. He liked his mornings slow, she says one day. I can tell. The dog's tail gives a light, unguarded sweep. Ellen smiles. She tells him about the library record. About the photo. About how the librarian smiled when she spoke Walter's name. You mattered, Ellen says. Both of you. The dog lowers his head, resting it near the photo by the door. He stays that way for a long time. As if listening. As if something inside him finally hears what it needed to hear. Other neighbors begin to understand too. Not through explanations, but through presence. Someone leaves flowers near the porch one morning. Another leaves a small bowl of water further down the steps. No one asks questions. No one rushes. The porch becomes a quiet place of respect. One afternoon, Ellen notices the dog doing something new. He stands, walks to the edge of the porch, then turns back. Not anxious. Not uncertain. Just checking. He sits again, but closer to Ellen this time. Their shoulders touch. Ellen places her hand gently on his back. He doesn't flinch. Doesn't move away. He breathes out slowly. Trust. Later that week, the dog arrives later than usual. Ellen feels a flutter of worry. But when he comes into view, she sees why. He's walking with ease, but not urgency. He pauses longer. Looks around. As if making sure nothing is being left behind. When he reaches the porch, he doesn't sit right away. He stands in front of the door. Then turns. And sits facing Ellen. She understands the invitation. She talks. About Walter. About this street. About how love stays. The dog listens. And when she finishes, he stands. Walks to the door one last time. Touches it gently with his nose. Then turns back. The moment stretches. Golden. Still. The dog steps down from the porch. Ellen watches, heart steady. He doesn't rush. He doesn't look back right away. But before he reaches the sidewalk, he turns, looks at the porch, looks at Ellen. A final glance. Not goodbye. Gratitude. Then he walks on. And Ellen knows. Love doesn't always ask to stay. Sometimes, it stays long enough to be remembered. The porch is quiet the next morning. Sunlight still finds the boards, still settles gently along the railing, still warms the door where hands once rested. But the dog does not arrive. Ellen notices immediately. She stands at her window longer than usual. Watches the empty sidewalk. Listens for paws that do not come. There is no ache. No panic. Just a soft understanding. She steps outside and crosses the street alone. The water bowl stays in her hands. When she reaches the porch, she sets it down anyway. Not out of habit. Out of respect. She sits. The house feels different now. Not abandoned. At rest. Ellen looks at the photo by the door. Walter's smile is gentle. Unassuming. The kind that never asked to be remembered, but was. She traces the worn groove on the railing again. Feels the story held in the wood. Later that afternoon, Ellen walks the neighborhood. She carries the leash with her. Not hidden. Not displayed. Just present. At the small park a few blocks away, she sees him. The dog. He's lying in the grass beneath a tree. Not alone. An older couple sits nearby. A hand rests on his back. He looks content. Whole. Ellen doesn't interrupt. She doesn't call out. She simply watches. And the dog lifts his head. Their eyes meet. No surprise. No hesitation. Just recognition. The dog's tail moves once. Slow. Certain. Ellen lifts her hand. A small wave. Then she turns and walks home. That evening, she returns the photo to the porch. Places it where the light will touch it each morning. The leash rests beside it. The porch holds no waiting now. Only memory. Only peace. Days pass. The house remains quiet. But the street doesn't feel empty anymore. Ellen smiles more. Neighbors linger. The porch becomes a place people notice, not for sadness, but for what it taught them. That love can be quiet. That devotion doesn't demand attention. That some bonds don't end. They simply change shape. One morning, Ellen sits on her own porch with coffee. The sun rises. The street wakes. And she feels it. Closure. Warm. Complete. Because the dog didn't come back to the porch to be lost. He came back to remember. And once he knew that someone else remembered too, he was free to move forward. The porch remains. Not empty. But full. Of light. Of love. Of a quiet devotion. Finally at rest.